Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Selling podcast. This is the show where we talk about all the best kept secrets on how to help you sell more stuff to more people so you can benefit not only your customers, but your business, your staff, and also your family. Now, we wish this information was around when we started, but it wasn't. So over the last few years, we've spent close to R1 million acquiring this information, learning from the best salespeople, marketing gurus, and business operators. And today we're sharing this information for free because hopefully you don't have to struggle the way we did. Now, what's the catch, you wonder? Well, the catch is leave your ego at the door, open your mind, and just implement some of these perspectives in your business. My name is Jandre, and I'm going to quickly introduce our two hosts of the show. So I've got Gilbert Kompokwe and Vikas van Wyk. Gilbert, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and we just want to share some knowledge, and I hope everybody out there takes a lot of value from this.
Cool. Vix?
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited for this podcast together.
Yeah, it's something we've been wanting to do for a while, and finally we're sitting around the table just talking about sales psychology. And this is really what the art of selling is all about, is really speaking about the psychological elements and perspectives when it comes to sales, because I think anybody will tell you that when it comes to generating sales for any business, the biggest element in your success is psychology. So I look at it as there are two pillars when it comes to the success of a marketing strategy or a sales strategy. And those two pillars are technology, number one, and psychology, number two. Now, technology is crucial because that allows us to distribute our message to the world. These are platforms like Facebook, like Instagram. All of these platforms have been built or are built on the back of technology. So that's why technology is so crucial. But there's another component, and that is psychology. And that is about 85%, I would say, of the equation when it comes to the success of your marketing and sales strategy. And that's the one thing that a lot of people tend to leave out of the equation. They completely forget to focus on that. And that is what we want to discuss in this show. So maybe we can just start with Gilbert, your background, essentially, how you've gotten to where you are. And we can talk a little bit about Vix, and I'll quickly share just a short story of myself, and then we can dive in.
Yeah, I'm here by accident. I'm kidding. So, been a marketer for the last, 5-6+ years. And I started off in my humble beginnings after being an online English teacher. I had a passion later on for social media marketing. I wasn't sure where I was going to go in life, but I think I definitely went down the right path, because 5 years fast forward, and I'm sitting here as a full-on digital marketer, as a general manager, and I've been lucky enough to manage quite a number of teams and accounts, and we've specialized quite a lot in paid advertising. So I consider myself a digital strategist at this stage. But that's just my bit of a background there. I'm obviously a speaker as well, and a guest lecturer for digital school marketing. So I'm quite excited to have gotten this far in my career. I could have never imagined it, but I think I chose the right path, and I'm really excited to be with you guys to talk about marketing.
Did you mention that you're a co-author?
Oh yes, I'm trying to be humble and keep my humility.
You've succeeded.
So yeah, a co-author as well of our book Adjust.
Yeah, I always forget that actually.
I know. Yet we need to do a new one, eh?
Yeah, I think it's time.
No, of course.
Vikas, up to you. How's it going?
Yeah, I think just a quick intro on me. I used to run a small town production company. Used to do a lot of events, weddings and stuff like that. And I stumbled upon digital marketing by trying to promote and market my own business. And that led me down the fruitful path of being able to start a digital marketing agency down the line, and joining V8 Media as a partner. And I'm really grateful for how far we've come, and excited for the journey ahead. I think there's a lot of things that have happened along the path that could add a lot of value to this podcast.
100%, man. So reflecting on my journey, like it started, I mean, you guys have heard this and you're probably going to be like, oh, the story again. But for those of you that don't know, like I started as a personal trainer and I just got tired of standing on my feet all day, really, to be honest with you. And I met my wife who was about, well, at the time she was my girlfriend and she was about 6 years older than me. And I was like, well, if I need to keep this chick in my life, who I really wanted to, I need to start, thinking about my career. And that is essentially when I thought to myself, hey, let me figure out how to build a business. And the first thing I basically did was I started Googling how to make money online, because that's what I suppose we all do. And long story short, one thing led to the other. I started a website, learned Facebook ads, was one of the first South Africans to actually run ads in South Africa. I've been very grateful to have sold that business to a company here in Johannesburg. At the time, I was living in George. And my journey in Joburg started as marketing director for this organization. We've gone from 30 million to 100 million in a matter of 3 to 4 years. And I left that company in 2018 to combine my marketing skills with the business skills that I've acquired thanks to, working under some really awesome people in that organization. And that's how V8 Media really came to be, which is the agency that we're all a part of. So Gilbert is our general manager, Vickers is our head of operations, and I'm our head of growth, making sure that there's always, demand for our services. And this is how we've come to be, the three of us. And, we're good mates at the same time, and we business colleagues. And yeah, I think what we're trying to do is really just educate people on the importance of understanding the psychology of selling a product or a service in this market. And today we want to really just focus on our first episode, which is really just boils down to the essence of understanding how the brain actually works when it comes to understanding sales messages. So, I have this formula in my mind, and I would like to articulate that with you guys. And this is how I see, and you guys can chime in when you feel necessary, is that I feel this is how the brain really reacts to a marketing message. When a brand puts out a message into the world, whether it be on social media, whether it be on Facebook, regardless of the channel, but when you put a message out into the world, when you're trying to speak to potential customers, this is essentially what happens to your mind. And your mind would look at this message or this image or this video, whatever medium you've chosen to articulate your product or service. Your mind would look at that, and immediately a thought will be created in your mind. Now, after that thought, there will be a picture that appears in your mind, which we call your imagination. So first, the thought process happens. Then what happens is there's this imaginative process where you're actually painting a picture of this message or product or service that's being promoted. Then essentially there's a feeling that now comes from this picture that you've created in your mind. And after that feeling, this starts to transition into an actual emotion, whether it be excitement or whether it be fear, whatever it would be. And then what happens, there's this logical reasoning part, the gatekeeper that I call it. Essentially, there's this logical reasoning side of the brain, the actual gatekeeper that comes to the surface and goes, hold on, before you, think too much about this, before you really dive into, cashing out on that or, buying into this, do you really need it? Is this really necessary? And then is when your brain actually decides to make a decision. And what we've learned over time is that the best marketers in the world, the best salespeople in the world, understand this process. They understand this formula. And that's what really helps them successfully sell their products or services. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, there's a brilliant book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. And it captures the essence of what you're referring to. And he explains in the book that we've got two systems in our brain, system 1 and system 2. And system 1 is the part of the brain that gets excited very quickly, that part of the brain that is more impulsive. It doesn't really consider too much more than, I like that, ooh, that's pretty, that's nice, it's going to look good to me. And then you get the system 2, which is now the logical side that you're referring to. That 30% that kicks in and be like, okay, but hold on. Do you really need this? Can you actually afford it? What's it going to do to your bank balance? Can you commit to, paying a monthly installment of this rate? And it explains exactly how the brain works, system 1 and system 2 in a nutshell. That's exactly what you're referring to. And when you understand that, you understand how to put your messages across, because system 2 is the one that needs to handle objections, right? System 1 is looking at all the pretty nice things, but system 2 is the one that's needs to handle now the objections. And when you understand how the brain works, you can also understand how to put marketing message across that helps to address the system 1 and the system 2 when it kicks in.
Yeah, exactly. Vix, anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, it boils down to objections, and the better we can handle objections in our advertising and marketing, the better obviously we'll convert, and that would equate into more sales eventually.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think a lot of people, this process happens either consciously or unconsciously. So, I've got an example that I want to share with you guys. For example, if you're looking at an advert, let's say it's lunchtime and you're looking at an advert of an amazingly juicy burger in your newsfeed, the first thing that happens is that your brain creates a thought of, hold on, I'm hungry. I might be hungry, actually, now that I've looked at this picture. And then what happens? There's this feeling of hunger now. So now you're actually starting to feel hunger. You're like, oh, yeah, I actually am hungry. And then you're looking at this picture and you can imagine the burger and eating it. So you can actually imagine tasting it. And then what happens, you get excited about it. You're like, ooh, that's going to be so nice. And then there's this logical reasoning, part of your brain. And I think and I'm just giving a rough estimate, it's completely arbitrary, but in my mind is like about 30% of the decision-making process is this logical process. This gatekeeper that comes to the surface and goes, hold on. Do you really need this burger right now? Do you really want to spend that money on a burger at this point in time when you've got food right here next to you that you've already prepared for today, that you can warm up in a few seconds? And that percentage of logical reasoning might be, it's different for different individuals. Some people might have 70% of that. Some people might have 0% of that. A lot of people are very impulsive when it comes to making decisions around buying products or services. And then your brain starts to decide whether this is an investment worth making or not. And you referring to the objection side is like that logical gatekeeper that comes to the surface. If you can handle those objections effectively in your marketing messages in some way, shape, or form, you are then speaking to that gatekeeper, which then improves the odds of the decision being in the business's favor, essentially, right?
Yeah, and I think from our side, it also boils down to really, really getting deep into understanding your consumer and what those objections might be, because that's essentially how you address it in your advertising, is understanding the end consumer at the end of the day.
And Gilbert, like this example, I mean, you're quite a kicks guy, a sneaker guy. I know that, and it's like, this is for you. I don't know what your logical reasoning formula is when it comes to buying sneakers, but I mean, the example is really just you sitting there, you're seeing these sneakers in your feed, and beautifully white or whatever color you're looking at it, and it's like just so sexy, and you're going the thought of, maybe I need new sneakers, and then it's that essentially that feeling of, you know what, I'll look good in these.
I wanted to actually say, I think one thing we should also look into here is not to downplay too much the power of marketing, because at the end of the day, what's happening there in that instance is that you are bringing a message across to an audience that likely didn't even need the thing you're bringing to the forefront. The power of marketing lies in the ability to create this desire for something, a want. And we're actually, a lot of the times when you are marketing, you're marketing to wants. You're not necessarily marketing to needs, because you are creating a desire for something. So yes, the sneakers, I'm a culprit. I fall trapped to it all the time. I just see something that looks good and I'm like, I want it. But my logical reasoning does kick in, and it's like, but hold on a second. You know that can you afford this? You still gotta buy groceries for the month. What's wifey gonna say? Rocking up with new sneakers, right? But yeah, I think from my end, like that always happens, where I do have to consider that I need to think about this decision. But if the marketing, I mean, and if the shoe is right and it looks really good, my impulse just trumps it, to be honest.
It's like that gatekeeper is completely asleep.
Yeah.
He's like sitting there.
And I think what's also interesting about it is the reason why it gets trumped is because of the fact that, system 2, the logical side of it requires a lot of thinking. It requires a lot of energy to calculate whether this is a right decision and a wrong decision, benefits, cons, pros and cons to it. And that in itself takes a lot of bandwidth with your brain. And it's very tiring to think. I mean, it's like, imagine studying for an exam, and in an exam, you're thinking. And we all know it takes a lot of energy to really think. So what ends up happening is that impulse is become so strong that the logical side of it just doesn't have enough energy to think, and you just end up buying the thing. But it's understanding that these are the dynamics that happen when it comes to the brain and how it's wired and how it eventually makes decisions and just decides to go and do what it wants.
It's all psychology at the end of the day. And I think, Vix, we work with a lot of beauty clinics, and you more involved in this decision, in this division of the company. But if we had to use the example of a beauty clinic, a laser clinic, for example, you would put out a before and after photo of, someone's maybe face pigmentation before and after. And someone looking at that, they're going to get the thought of, oh, you know what? This is making me aware of my pigmentation. And then they're going to get the feeling of, oh, this is definitely something that I want to take care of. And then they're going to get the imagination of, imagine my face being, kind of like cured from this, which then creates the emotion of confidence and excitement when people go, wow, you look amazing. And then there's this logical reasoning side that always comes in last and goes, how much is it? Is it really going to work? Can I trust this company? Does the machine actually work the way that they say it does? Does the technology work the way that they say it does? And that's when people then make a decision.
Yeah, like it happens exactly like that. And I think, it all boils down to psychology, as you said. The better we can get in the minds of our customers, the better we can sell our products and services online, ultimately.
Yeah, and every customer is essentially different, right? So this process happens essentially either unconsciously, some happens more consciously than others, because some people might be a little bit more self-aware of their thought processes, and some people might not be. And in some cases, the better we can understand this as businesses, as marketers, the better we can essentially articulate the value of our products and then benefit those customers. And I think I want to talk about something that I think is very important, because a lot of people might listen to what we're saying and think that we're trying to almost like manipulate someone's thought processes, but that's not what we're trying to do, essentially. There's a difference between manipulating and persuading. And I can't remember who actually came up with this quote specifically, but it boils down to the fact that when you're manipulating someone, it's usually not for their benefit. And this is where obviously people need to focus on ethical marketing, because the tactics and the strategies that we're going to be sharing here, with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility. So it's important to understand that we're not here to manipulate people and making them believe things that are not true, because then you are running an unethical business and you are becoming a scam artist. And that will, your marketing is probably just going to lead to other people realizing that you're a scam artist. But it's understanding that you can persuade someone to making the best decision for them, because sometimes we actually don't know what's best for us. But if you really have a really good product or a service that can benefit someone, it's almost like your duty, and I'm saying this, it's like your duty to articulate that value of your product the best you can, so that person can actually get that benefit for themselves and their lives.
Yeah, there's a divide between marketing and product, right? In your marketing, you make a promise, and in your product, you fulfill on that promise, right? So it's important that your marketing lines up with the promise that you make, and lines up with the product itself and the product that you are selling. Because I think a lot of the time you can overpromise in your marketing, and then when your product underdelivers, you're going to leave your customers unsatisfied. And then vice versa, the other way around.
Yeah, if that formula is literally balanced, that's when you actually start to have a really successful business, because you can attract customers efficiently and you can keep them happy on the back end of that. that's essentially when businesses become really successful. And I look at Apple as a good example of this. Like, obviously, it's one of the biggest examples or easiest examples to just think of, but they have really amazing marketing that appeals to someone who wants to be innovative and creative and who wants to be cutting edge. But then at the same time, their products, when you actually use it for the very first time, and a good example of this, Vix, because you didn't have a MacBook. Actually, Gilbert as well, culprit. So, funny story, I've always been a MacBook fan, and I've always been an Apple fan. I'm not overly romantic to Apple. I'm not biased to Apple. I'm very open-minded to trying every product out there. I've had Samsungs, I've had iOS devices. But when it comes to a PC, environment, I'm just a MacBook fan since 2013. Now, Gilbert, I mean, we met in 2018. You had a PC and I gave you a MacBook and you're like, what the hell is this thing?
I just thought a laptop's a laptop.
Until you use the Mac.
Yeah. No, it was a completely different experience, And I think it was literally a case of understanding, like, though they're pricier in the marketplace, however, the value that you get from them is it justifies it, right? And sometimes above and beyond. So I think the you sold it, you definitely did, that's for sure. But the actual experience of it definitely justifies what you're paying for. And I think in anything, especially when it comes to sales, you want to make sure that the price point that you have something at, the person receiving it on the other end, the value that they're getting from it is equatable, but actually what you should be doing is having the person experience a lot more value versus the price they're paying for it. And that's always going to be, I think, especially a salesperson or sales objective, is how can I put this forward to an individual who's interested in this product? When I price it at what I price it at, the person must understand the true value behind it, and that the value that they're getting is a lot higher than the price point that they're going to be paying for.
And I mean, Vix is another example. He was also a Windows guy and he moved over to a Mac. And then what happened, Vickers?
Yeah, no, I completely loved it. I'm completely in the ecosystem now.
Yeah, so this has by no means been sponsored by Apple. Just a disclaimer. But I mean, that is such a good example because, when you look at their marketing, when you look at the brand, there is an appeal to it. And like you said, it is a bit more of a pricier product, but then the value of that, and again, value is kind of a bit subjective depending on, the individual. But I think it's fair to say that a high amount of people who do invest in that product, has a really good experience of it at the end of the day. And getting back to essentially this, logical part of the brain that might go back to the Apple product or example, some people are sitting there going, it's just too expensive. It just doesn't make sense. It's not necessarily, it's not something that I might actually get that much value out of. And using that as an example, I feel like the logical reasoning part of our minds, that gatekeeper, that's usually where most people drop off when it comes to the decision-making process. And you referred to this earlier, that the better a business can handle those objections, whether it would be in the message that was shared or whether it would be with a post-click experience, from an advertising standpoint after clicking on a Facebook ad and taking them to a landing page or whatever it might be. The better you can do that, the higher the probability of you going to actually get that person to convert and becoming a customer for the very first time. And that's why psychology is so important. And this is exactly why we're starting the Art of Selling podcast, which I'm just really excited about. But at the same time, that is just one part of the equation because, getting someone to understand your message is one element. The most important element that we actually need to consider before that even is really grabbing someone's attention. So without someone's attention, we can't sell them anything. So, and I have this kind of like analogy in my head where if you think about attention, you've got interrupted attention and you've got intentional intention. And imagine sitting in a meeting with someone and you're focused on the conversation and a colleague interrupts or knocks on the door and says, sorry, can I quickly come in and tell you something? She comes in and she says something in your ear. And in that moment, listening to her, you have interrupted intention because your focus is still on the main conversation that's being had with the person across the table. That's where majority of your bandwidth is allocated mentally. Now there's someone who's saying, there's something that you quickly need to know. You're giving that individual your interrupted attention. So there's like, let's hypothetically say 30% of your mental bandwidth is now dedicated to that message. And she says something that's really disturbing. Like if there's obviously a massive emergency in the business or company or with a family member, whatever it may be, immediately your mental bandwidth switches and it takes away the focus from this conversation and it puts all the mental bandwidth and focus to what's happening over here. And that's what's happening constantly in people's minds. Literally every second, every minute of every day is your mental bandwidth and focus just shifts the whole time. And as a business owner, as a marketer, we need to understand that. And our jobs as marketers, technically, or sales individuals, is to ask ourselves, how can I interrupt someone in their day, whether it be a Facebook ad or whatever it is, or obviously when I say interrupt, it's the negative connotation to it. But what I'm saying is like, how do you get someone to pay attention to what you're trying to say and convert that interrupted attention into intentional attention when someone goes, hey, I actually really want to hear what you have to say about this. Tell me more. Not sure if anybody have any thing to say about that.
I think it's almost like just creating that gap in which you can actually then open that prospect's mind to what you have to say, and that comes down to how you get their attention from the offer or from the value proposition that you are putting out there. And it's all about just immediately getting their attention, and then that allows you to open a gap for them to be receptive to what you have to say, and you continue the sales process from there pretty much.
I think the getting attention part, just to touch a bit on that, as you're speaking in my mind, I was thinking of my own analogy of somebody at work sitting on their desktop, maybe they're a graphic designer or whatever it is. And on the one end, they're paying attention to the work they're doing. But on the other end, they got their phone, sitting on their lap, and they're scrolling through social media. There's attention is supposed to be on the work, but then it's also divided with the social media scrolling that they're doing mindlessly to some degree. And when it comes now to which one is going to win to get this person's attention, if you're sitting there scrolling along on social media, an ad that might, let's just say this person is a graphic designer, an ad that goes and screams out saying, calling out all graphic designers, new opportunity exists and you don't want to miss. That is something that would directly resonate with them, because remember, they're scrolling mindlessly. And how do you get their attention? Calling out graphic designers, latest opportunity you don't want to miss. They will stop and be like, oh, wait a moment, what's this? So it's about resonating the messaging, right? Making sure that you are actually speaking to directly the person that you want to. And that's just one example. Of course, there's many examples of how to really call out who you're looking for. But I think if you're trying to get people's attention and it's split between two different things, you're really going to have to understand. And this is where it comes down to understanding your audience, understanding your target market, and how can you speak to them so that you can get their full attention. And those are the things that you need to craft. The messaging is so important in order for you to get someone's full attention, especially if it's going to be in a world where we're distracted, where we're busy, where we're divided, and so forth.
And we're more distracted than ever. Microsoft actually released a study a while back that indicated that the average individual's attention span has dropped from 12 seconds and this was in 2000, to about 7 to 8 seconds in 2021. And it's probably less now in 2023, to be honest with you. So we as marketers and business owners have to work so much harder at standing out, cutting through all the noise in order to get that user's attention on the other side, so that we can give them a message that we believe is in some way, shape, or form going to add value to their lives, or a product or service that's going to add value to their lives. And this is, again, why I'm so excited about this show and future episodes. And like Gilbert, like you said, like there's so many different examples of that. And those are the examples that we'll get into, across the show in the different episodes that we've planned. But I think I want to just emphasize how important all of this really is when it comes to trying to grow a business. Because without sales, you can't grow. And without grabbing someone's attention, you can't sell them anything. So it's really understandable. Then obviously when you have their attention, without being able to position the value of that product in a way where they get excited about it and want to actually see it as a good investment for them, you can't get the sale either. So essentially, this is why it's all so important. And I hope, that, in this first episode that we've made that clear to everybody listening.
Yeah, I think it's important to also understand how to grab someone's attention from an offer aspect, from a marketing aspect, from a visual aspect, from a copy aspect. And then also it needs to make sense for your business at the end of the day, right? We can't just go and grab attention and it doesn't make business sense to sell that product or to deliver that service then, because we're just not making money back on our marketing spend eventually when we look at the lifetime value of a customer.
I think about a rugby match where there's just a naked person running across the field. That's grabbing everybody's attention. But there's no real value in that for anybody except I suppose there's value in the entertainment of it.
Exactly.
If he puts a number on his back, that might might get him some
like a Vodacom logo. But in essence, what we're trying to reiterate here is that you can grab attention. There's different ways to do that, but you kind of like have to make sure that the attention that you're grabbing, it's applicable to the product or the service that you're trying to sell, and it's actually resonating with the audience that wants to buy or will benefit from that product or service at the same time. So I quickly just want to touch on, we've spoken about the fact that everybody's distracted, everybody's noisy, but we haven't really discussed why we're so distracted recently over the last couple of, let's say, 10 to 20 years. Our attention span is obviously dropping tremendously, and we haven't really discussed why that is. And having looked at, a lot of research over the years, considering that we're obviously a digital marketing agency, it's clear that it's because of three things, really. So the first element is the digital overload that's happening, is like digital devices. All of them are throwing a blizzard of notifications at us, and it's one notification after the other. In fact, on my iPhone, I've actually switched off most of my notifications. The only notifications I do receive is, WhatsApp messages, and then I also have an option where I put do not disturb, so I only get WhatsApp messages from certain people. And I think banking notification, and there's 2 or 3 other things I feel is essential to me. And that's it, because I know I can easily get distracted by getting all these unnecessary notifications of Mr. Delivery informing me that they've got to buy one, get one free at 12 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and all these different things. The other thing is, the first thing is digital overload. The second thing is, because of this increased stimulation, we find ourselves multitasking a lot as well. And there are so many studies that have shown that our brains actually can't do it. Like we're not really multitasking. We're actually just slowing down the process of achieving goals when we multitask, because our brains can actually just focus on one place at a time. And if you divide your mental bandwidth, you're decreasing the efficiency on both tasks. So if wherever you put most of your attention, that's what you can do with everything that you've got. You can put all your energy in getting that done. And the more energy and focus you can put in it, the quicker you can get it done. But now if you're taking away some of that mental bandwidth and allocating it to a second task, now you're removing that energy and that focus, which means you're going to slow down the efficiency of that task. And there are many studies that have showed that, it's just not possible to multitask. We think that we do, and we think that I can look at one screen, do something here, and look at another screen doing something there, but it's actually taking you twice as long to do. And the third element is instant gratification. Like we just don't have patience to wait. So, imagine clicking on a Facebook ad. If that site takes more than 3 or 4 seconds to load, we're out of there. So that business owner, that marketer who tried so hard to grab your attention in the newsfeed, standing out between all the noise, that was all in vain, because the customer on the other side didn't have the patience to wait 3 to 4 seconds for your site to load. And that obviously then influences the return on investment from your advertising. And it makes it difficult for you to get your message across, which makes it difficult for you to sell your product, which makes it difficult for you to grow as a business, essentially.
That speaks to the importance of how vital it would be for a brand to be very clear in their marketing messages. we've chatted about this a bit about this, and we've talked about being clear versus being quirky and cool, and using euphemisms and acronyms and words that people need the dictionary to go and look up. There's so much noise, and people don't have the time to decipher the paragraph that you've written out, all to simply say, hey, I have this product, I think it's for you, here's why you should check it out. Right? So it speaks to being very clear in your messaging and concise. It also speaks to the aspect of reducing the friction points for any consumer to get the product that it is that you're marketing. And what I mean by that is, we say if you're able to have your site be able that an individual can check out in 3 steps or less, you've got a well optimized website. And the reason why we say 3 steps or less is because the more steps a user or an individual has to take in the process of the buying journey, the greater the chances of them dropping off, because of the fact that we don't have that time. We don't have the luxury of trying to go through a process and figure out what steps I need to take just to add something to my basket and check out, right? There's too much noise going on out there. Like you said, I actually do the same thing. I've literally turned off all my notifications. And I've turned them off because I can't focus on multiple things, right? It's all very distracting. The less distractions there are, the greater the chances of I taking a specific path that you've maybe outlined for me in this customer journey, and I can actually complete an action. So the less noise that is created, the less steps that I also need to take, because remember, we don't all have the time and the luxury to try and understand your 10-step process in a checkout journey, the greater the chances of you actually succeeding at the end of the day and getting the customer to take the action that you would like them to take.
Yeah, like the new currency is speed and convenience, right? Like Gary Vee said, one of these days people, and brand, that's why brand is also so important, because like Gary Vee said, like someday from now, people are just going to say, hey, Alexa, I want Budweiser, instead of looking for what beers they want or something like that, or browsing websites and ordering beers directly online, because it's just so much faster and so much more convenient for them to do that. And I think speed and convenience is the new currency, and we all need to adapt to that.
When it comes to speed and convenience, like you said, Vix, is really essential, and I think we can apply that to our marketing strategies as well. The quicker you can get the message across and the clearer you can be with that message, and the quicker the person can buy the product and get the benefit or the value of that product, that's essentially what it boils down to. Then you're going to have a successful formula to growing your business.
Yes, so like speed to value is also like something.
Speed to value, 100% is what it all comes down to. Is like, can someone buy your product and instantly almost feel the difference or the benefit, or gain the benefit of it? So I think for this episode, I would love to conclude, just the thought processes and how the brain reacts to sales messages, as we discussed earlier. And that is really quite simple. There's a marketing message essentially in the world. Your brain then looks at that, creates a thought process. There's a thought that happens. After that thought, there's this imaginative process that creates a picture in your mind. Because of that picture, you're starting to feel something, because that's how our mind just works. And after that, you're starting to actually convert that into an emotion, a real emotion, which then either gets you excited. And then there's this part of the mind, the gatekeeper, the logical reasoning side of the brain, that starts to just ask yourself, like, is this really worth investing in? Is this really going to work or not? And the better we can handle objections, essentially, as a business, the higher the probability that we can get that customer to make a good decision, for them. And that's really the process that we wanted to unpack today. And as a marketing, individual, and as a sales, kind of like an enthusiast, like I love the sales process. I love everything about sales. The better we can understand this, the better we can tailor our marketing, our messaging, our products, our offers, and everything to ensure that, now that we understand this journey, we can essentially strategically put certain messages in place, certain words in place, create certain offers, allow certain products, to enter the market, whatever it may be, in order to get the customers to actually buy into it, as long as it's obviously adding benefit and value to them. But that's literally the formula that we've really come up with, I suppose, as a business, is that if we can understand this process, we can come up with a formula in order to, ensure that we maximize the understanding of it. And that's really what the art of selling is all about. And the better we can understand this, the better we can market and sell our services and products. Like I said in the beginning, this podcast or these shows are basically all tailored to help you sell more stuff to more people so that you can benefit them, so that you can benefit your business and your staff and essentially your family. And this information wasn't really around when we started, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Even before that, we had to pay a lot of money to get access to this information. There's a lot more of it now roaming freely. But in this podcast, we'll be taking all the lessons that we've learned. We've spent close to R1 million over the last couple of years, getting access to this information from business coaches, mentors, and, sales gurus, etc. And we'll be sharing that with you for free so you don't have to struggle the way that we did. And the catch is, when you look at these episodes, when you listen to them, essentially leave your ego at the door. Just realize that you don't know everything, because that's what we've realized. I was in that space where I thought I know everything about growing a business and generating sales. So my life lessons are leave your ego at the door, open your mind, and just practice or implement some of the perspectives that people are sharing and see what works for you. And this is really what this is all about.
Learn to unlearn and relearn. Simple as that.
I love that. Vix, any last words?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that it's all about reverse engineering the psychology of selling, whether that's in your marketing, whether you are on a sales call or whatever the case may be. Is the better you can understand your consumer, the better you can reverse engineer that entire process from the back end forward. You'll be able to get in the minds of them and grab their attention effectively.
100%. Well, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Thank you for your attention. And we'll see you in the next episode. All the best. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.